Welcome to the Wealth Dialogue. I'm Emily.
And I'm Jack.
Have you ever had that strange feeling? You know the one, you earn money, maybe even a bit more than you did a few years ago. You try to be responsible, you tell yourself, this month I'm going to save. But then somehow at the end of the month, you look at your bank account and nothing's really changed. Saving money used to feel, I don't know, normal, achievable. But now, for so many of us, it feels almost impossible. If that sounds familiar, then this deep dive is for you. We've all felt that little voice, that guilt that says, I must just be bad with money. Well, we are going to tear that idea apart today. We're exploring the hidden factors, the systemic and behavioral reasons that your source material details that make saving so brutally difficult right now. We're not here for the usual advice.
No.
We are here to explain the new rules.
And what's so fascinating looking at the sources is that this feeling you're describing, this combination of high financial anxiety and really low savings, it's almost universal at this point. And when something is that widespread, it tells you something important.
But it's not just me.
It's not just you. It's not a personal problem. It's a system problem.
Okay, let's unpack that right there because that is a huge point. Almost everyone I talk to, they say the same thing. I want save, I really do, but I just can't. So if it's not, a sudden wave of individual failure, what changed in the system? What's the core problem the sources are pointing to?
The core problem is a fundamental mismatch, a really radical one. People today are trying to live a 2025 lifestyle, right, with all the costs, the technology, the social expectations.
Right.
But they're operating with financial advice and assumptions from like 1985. We're still told, work hard, save 10%, cut out the daily latte, and you'll be fine.
That was the rule book for a totally different game.
A completely different economic era.
Yeah.
And those rules, they just don't account for the new landscape.
Because the goalposts have moved. I mean, the costs of the big things, the absolute essentials, they've just outpaced everything else.
Exactly. The sources are so clear on this. This is a system problem driven by massive fixed costs. You could be the most frugal person in the world, a total minimalist. But if you live in a major city where housing eats up 40, maybe 50% of your take-home pay right off the bat,
The margin for error is gone.
it just vanishes.
Yep.
Or if you're carrying huge student loan debt because the cost of education has, skyrocketed over the past couple of decades, we've seen real wages stagnate for so many people while the big three, housing, education, and healthcare, have just exploded. So you're not fighting your own habits, you're fighting a structural headwind.
So the big realization then is that people aren't necessarily bad with money. They're just playing with an outdated rule book in a game that's become way, way harder. I have to say, that's a massive psychological relief just hearing that out loud.
It is, isn't it? Because it shifts the whole conversation. It moves it away from shame, from this idea of a character flaw.
Yeah, I'm lazy or I'm not disciplined.
Right. And it moves it towards strategy. It's about strategic defense.
Yeah.
If you think it's all your fault, you're just stuck in guilt. But if you realize you're playing a game with new, hidden difficulty settings turned way up, well, then you can start figuring out how to actually play it. You realize you need a different strategy than your parents did.
Okay, so let's get into those strategies.
Yeah.
A huge part of that shame we just mentioned, it always seems to focus on the small stuff.
Oh, the coffee.
Always the coffee. Food delivery, streaming subscriptions. I mean, let's tackle this head on because it's a constant debate. If my rent is taking half my income, is telling me to cut out a $5 coffee, just, blaming the victim, do these small things actually matter?
That is such a critical question. And the sources give a really nuanced answer. You're absolutely right. Cutting out coffee is not going to solve the housing crisis.
Okay.
The big systemic costs. That's the catastrophe. But the small expenses matter for a different reason. They are the primary mechanism for what you could call financial entropy. They're the quiet death by 1,000 cuts.
Leaks in a bucket.
Exactly. Think of it like that. Your rent and your student loans are the giant, obvious holes in the bucket. They need big structural repairs. But all that small spending, that's the hundreds of tiny, quiet leaks. Individually, that $7 for food delivery feels harmless. It's a convenience, maybe even a necessity on a really stressful day.
You can always rationalize it.
You can always rationalize it.
Yeah.
But add it all up, and together, they create this constant, quiet erosion of any potential savings. You bleed out financially, $5 and $10 at a time.
So it's less about the specific dollar amount of any one coffee and more about the habit of these constant small outflows. It's the momentum killer.
Precisely. That's the perfect way to put it. You might work really hard to save, say, $100 by not buying some gadget you wanted. You feel good about that.
Yeah, a little victory.
A victory. But
Yeah.
then that $100 is just quietly drained away by transactions you don't even really notice or budget for. You don't see a big drop in your account. You just get to the end of the month, look at the balance, and think, wait, where did it all go?
That is such a familiar feeling.
And that's the danger of the leaks. They're so easy to ignore because they're tied to immediate pleasure or convenience.
That leaks in a bucket analogy is really powerful, and it connects directly to the next big psychological trap, which is lifestyle inflation.
Mm.
It's a term a lot of people have heard, but I don't think we always grasp how deep the trap is. How do we explain it simply?
It is so simple. As your income goes up, your spending goes up to perfectly match it,
Or exceed it?
or even exceed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get a raise, and almost immediately you upgrade something. The car, the apartment, the vacation budget, or maybe it's just, you start buying the fancier brand of groceries.
I have to admit, after I got my last promotion, the very first thing I did was buy a much better ergonomic chair for my home office. It felt totally justified.
And that is the perfect example. It feels like a rational, justified expense. You
Yeah.
think, I worked hard for this, I deserve this comfort, this is an investment in my health.
Which it was.
It was. But the painful truth is that your perceived quality of life goes up, but your net worth, that crucial gap between what you earn and what you have to spend, it doesn't get any wider. You feel richer, but your bank account is just running in place on a more expensive treadmill.
And the really cruel part of that cycle is the illusion of success, right? You're earning more, you feel like you're moving up in the world, but you are still just one emergency away from disaster.
Exactly. You're still living paycheck to paycheck, just in a higher tax bracket with more expensive habits.
It actually makes you more fragile in some ways.
It does, and it heightens the stress. Because once that new spending level becomes your new normal, your baseline, trying to cut back feels like genuine deprivation. It feels like you're going backwards.
Which ties right into the next big challenge we need to break down, using money as a coping mechanism.
Yeah, the sources make this really strong point about a major behavioral shift, that more and more people spend money not just for things, but specifically to feel better. It's become a tool for mood regulation. It has. Spending is now one of the most accessible forms of emotional relief we have. The modern world is it's incredibly stressful. There's constant pressure, constant comparison from social media, and honestly, a lot of boredom. A quick purchase, an impulse buy on Amazon, a new video game, a fancy meal delivered to your door. It gives you an immediate, reliable hit of dopamine.
It's self-medication by credit card.
It is. It's a transaction to fix an emotion. And it works for a moment.
Okay, so if spending is this immediate, easy emotional relief, then saving must feel like the exact opposite.
It feels like a punishment.
A punishment, yeah.
That is the core psychological battle that defeats almost everyone's best intentions. Saving is the act of actively denying yourself that instant relief. So when you're already stressed from work, anxious about the future, or just feeling down, asking your brain to choose some abstract reward 10 years from now over feeling better right now.
It's almost an impossible choice.
It's an unfair fight. Your brain is wired to deal with immediate threats, and to your brain, stress feels like a threat that needs to be neutralized immediately.
So saving gets transformed. It's not this empowering choice for your future self. It's a fight against your own biology in the present.
Yes. You're actively taking away a tool that you know will make you feel better, even for a little while, when you feel like you need it most.
And that's why just telling people have more willpower is such useless advice.
It fails 99% of the time. The sources really stress this. To beat this, you have to get willpower out of the picture. You have to remove the decision itself. You have to set it up so that saving isn't a choice you make when you're feeling stressed or tired. It has to be a mandatory automated process that you set up once when you're feeling calm and rational.
Okay, that is the perfect pivot. We've diagnosed the problem from all angles. The system, the small leaks, the lifestyle inflation, the emotional spending. Now for the solution. What practical, actionable steps did the sources provide that actually work against these deep-seated challenges?
Okay, so the sources lay out 5 core actions, and they all focus on changing your default settings and building a kind of structural defense for your money. So number 1 is the most important. Save before you spend, not after.
Pay yourself first.
Pay yourself first. It sounds so simple, but it is foundational. You have to treat your savings transfer like your most important bill, More important than your internet bill, more important than Netflix. It has to come out first. Don't wait to see what's left over at the end of the month.
Because the answer is always nothing.
The answer is always nothing.
And this directly attacks that emotional spending problem, right? If the money is already gone before you get the impulse to spend it, the battle is already won.
Exactly. So what's the second action item?
Start small. I love this one because it's so counterintuitive.
It is. We get so caught up in, I should be saving 15 or 20%, that we get paralyzed and do nothing. The sources emphasize that momentum is way more important than the initial amount. Even if you only automate 3% or even 5% of your income to start, the goal is to just build the habit. Successfully saving something creates a positive feedback loop. It replaces the guilt of failure with the empowerment of progress. That psychological win is worth so much more than the first few dollars you save.
That immediately lowers the barrier to entry for someone who feels like they have absolutely nothing to spare. Okay, what's number 3?
Number 3, separate your accounts. This is critical for defeating what I'd call emotional accounting.
Emotional accounting. Explain that.
That's when you look at one big pile of money in your checking account and you think, oh, I have $2,000. But you forget that $1,000 of that is for rent, and some is for bills, and maybe some was supposed to be for savings. By having one account just for day-to-day spending and a totally separate one, preferably at a different bank, for savings, you create clarity.
A firewall.
A firewall. The money you can spend is clearly defined. You don't feel guilty looking at your emergency fund when you buy groceries. It reduces decision fatigue.
Okay, and number 4, you've mentioned it already, but let's underline it.
Automate everything. We have to stress this. Set up that automatic transfer to your savings account for the morning after you get paid. This is the execution of all the other principles. It removes choice. It removes willpower. If you don't see the money in your main account, you learn to live without it. You won't miss it. Automation is your defense against a moment of weakness.
Automation is the fortress. Okay, and finally, number 5. This one is more about the why.
Yes. Give your savings a purpose. This is the motivational piece. Money that's just saved in a pile called savings feels restrictive. It feels like you're just hoarding it for no reason. It feels like punishment. But money saved for a specific reason feels empowering. You have to define the mission. Is this your financial calm fund for emergencies? Is this your escape a bad job fund? Is this your travel the world fund? When you name it, when you visualize the goal, the act of not spending today stops feeling like a deprivation. It feels like an investment in that future reality you want.
I love that. It's not a restriction, it's construction. You're building something. You're creating money with a mission. Okay, the theory here is so solid, but I always find a real story just makes it click. Do you have an example from the sources or your work that shows how this actually plays out for someone who feels completely stuck at zero?
I do. A perfect one, actually. I worked with a person earning a very good income, well above average. A classic case of lifestyle inflation. High-stress job, lots of little leaks for convenience food delivery, Ubers, impulse online shopping. And every single month, their savings was zero.
Right.
And they felt this constant, crushing guilt. They really believed they were just irresponsible.
So they were trapped in that stress spend cycle. What was the one change that broke them out?
We didn't try to do everything at once. That just leads to burnout. We focused on just 2 rules: automate and start small. That was it. They chose a number that felt almost painless. It was just 6% of their take-home pay. They set up an automatic transfer to a separate high-yield savings account for the morning their paycheck hit. We treated it like a tax.
Non-negotiable bill.
A non-negotiable bill. And that was it. We didn't touch anything else for a while.
And what happened? What did it look like 6 months later?
6 months later, their housing costs were still high. They were still buying coffee. They weren't suddenly rich. But for the first time in their adult life, they had a solid, small emergency fund. But more importantly than the money, they felt calm. That financial calm. It changed everything. Once that background hum of anxiety, am I going to save anything this month? Am I a failure? Once that was gone, they suddenly had the mental energy to start looking at the other leaks. They started resisting the emotional spending, not because they had to, but because they wanted to protect that newfound feeling of calm.
So the feeling of calm was the real reward. That was the catalyst for all the other positive changes, not the dollar amount itself. It was a behavioral win first.
Precisely. You have to conquer the emotional chaos first. Once you build that small fortress of calm, you can look at everything else with clarity instead of panic.
So if this deep dive has done anything for you, we hope it's helped you reframe this whole struggle. The central realization is this: saving money is not hard because you are uniquely failing at it. It's hard because the world changed. Fixed costs are suffocating, convenience is everywhere, and no one ever explained the new rules of the game.
And once you really get that, once you understand it's a system problem and a behavioral trap, not a character flaw,
Hmm.
you can stop blaming yourself. And that's where the real progress starts. It's the difference between beating yourself up and building a strategic fortress.
That knowledge is your most powerful tool. So let's end with that idea. That calm is the first true measure of success. If that feeling of calm was what changed decisions completely, what is the one single leak in the bucket? That one small recurring expense that you could identify right now and redirect just to start building that feeling of financial calm for yourself. Apply the knowledge, build your fortress, and start to win the game. Thanks for diving deep with
We'll
us.
see you next time.